Hi there. Welcome again to this quest of health living. It's Dr. Mura again, and I'm so excited that you joining us. I hope you have been following this quest through this quest videos that I've been making, and hopefully having a little bit more insight on how you can improve our health for better. Of course, if you haven't watched the previous video, please by all means go and check them out. It's going to give you an idea of what we are talking about. So today we continue with this aspect of debunking the myths that really have somehow influenced the health deterioration that we have in Africa today. And the myth that has been also ringing around, or that has been debunked for many years, is the issue that we need more protein, and the source of protein is animal food. In fact, if you go on the street and ask people the source of protein, you'll be told that the source of protein is animal food or it's meat. So in a century ago, the protein recommendation was more than twice than what it actually is. And this really started in the 1950s with the United Nations identifying that protein deficiency was a serious, widespread globally. And with that, they wanted to basically trying to figure out how people can get actually more protein. There was what called a protein gap that it needed to be filled. Now, this was at a time where in the United States, it was just coming out of war, and they had just created so much food, so much the food that actually the United States food industry saw opportunity to be able to get the protein and really distribute it through the third world countries, especially in the form of, in fact, I just said cow's milk, that is. I remember in a school, I think in the primaries, where the schools actually were giving some milk to us. Now, this, of course, it was coming from what you would have heard of the so-called kwashiorkor, which was assumed to be from the protein deficiency. And this was described by Dr. Cecily Williams, who, by the way, even with her time after realizing that it was actually misnomer, or rather what she thought was protein deficiency wasn't, so she spent the later part of her life debunking the myth of this condition that she actually had initially described. Now, it turns out that there is no evidence of kwashiorkor or protein deficiency. The actual cause is still somehow not really known, although there is a thought of a fecal transplant where there is a little bit change in the flora of the gut that may be related to that. And the idea that there is a protein deficiency often comes from the thinking that the food, these macronutrients or macronutrients are fragmented. It's like there is food for protein, there is food for carbohydrates, there is food for fat. But in effect, when you think about how food, there is no food that has only carbohydrates. Think of spinach for that matter. Spinach, it has carbohydrates, it has fat, it has some protein. In fact, you may be actually surprised that we talk about when you consider the cost per serving or per weight, we all thought we need more calories. The more calories, the more the food should be highly esteemed. But actually, in the plant world, for example, think of broccoli may have more protein actually than meat itself. So this concept of augmenting the parts, which I believe originated from we had these deficiency problems. That's where everything got divided. But we forgot that actually the way food is created, it has that awesomeness together. Anyway, how could they get this wrong? That was in the 1950s. Do you know how long it took to be able to come to the realization? Actually, no, there's no such thing as protein deficiency, malnutrition, or kwashiorkor, is due to lack of protein. This comes in again and again when talking about science, and the problem is when you see certain science that comes out and is widespread and later on it got debunked, there is no excitement to come out and say, hey, actually this is what's wrong. The same thing when we talk about alcohol, for example, and this was the case. And there was this saying that I think one should always consider when you hear certain recommendation. when you asked how could the nutrition world get this wrong, especially the researchers, the famous editorial came up with this where dispassionate objectivity of scientists is a myth. No scientist is simply involved in the single-minded pursuit of truth. He or she is also engaged in a passionate pursuit of a research grant and professional success. Nutritionists may wish to attack malnutrition, but they also wish to earn their living in ways they find congenial. Can you believe it? That's how basically, despite having evidence, they continue with it. Anyway, thank God science has prevailed. There is no such a thing as high protein malnutrition deficiency. And now the protein recommendation has actually dropped from 30% then to 10%, and 7% to 5%. But of course, we still have people obsessed with this issue of protein. But when we think about it, if really protein is a key and we need more of that, when you compare all the mammals around the world, the breast milk has the lowest protein possible. And that's why I think it's very dangerous, especially I understand there are all different reasons why people cannot breastfeed, but it's dangerous to start feeding the small baby the animal food that's a high in protein, high in fat, and that comes with a deleterious effect. Now, we know today that high protein actually comes with a lot of issues, and the lower protein actually, that of course now it comes down to 0.6 to 0.9 the grams of protein per kilogram per day. That is the recommendation. And often if you really want to eat food, you don't necessarily need to read the label to be able to know that I have enough, because when you eat healthy, nutrients-dense food, you should really have protein. Now, to understand the danger of protein, especially the protein that is found in meat, is that they actually did people that were eating it, and then they stopped for about 10-12 years, and they were vegetarian. And then they want to see if they switch them back to meat eating, or rather protein from meat, what will really happen. Now, meat consumption might have the people who once ate vegetarian diet and then switched to consumption, they found that they experienced a 146% increase in the odds of heart disease, 152% increase in stroke, and 166% increase in diabetes, and of course 231% increase in the odds of weight gain during these 12 years that they switched to meat eating. Of course, after transition from vegetarian to actually meat eating, they found that the life expectancy was shortened by 3.6 years. And we see this theme of how animal food, although previously highly esteemed as the key macronutrients that we need, it's actually having more problem. But anyway, I want to bring this up to understand that there are a lot of myths that are still going through. I remember even when I was still in medical school, we were still talking about this kwashiorkor, protein deficiency, malnutrition. And when you think about it, always the focus seems to be towards the protein, animal protein for that matter. But now we know that wasn't actually true science. And we know the amount of protein that one needs is not as high as you would have thought. And the more higher that you take, the more actually it's a detriment for your heart, for talking about the issue of stroke, talking about the issue of diabetes and weight gain. So what did you think about the protein? Did you always think the more protein, the better? Did you know that actually more protein you take not associated with some risk, as we just discussed? Please add in the comment below, and it will be nice to hear from you. Next, we're going to talk about the myths that related to milk, cow's milk. You would have heard that you need more milk to be able to keep your bones from falling. Let's talk about this.